Okay, hi everyone, it's Alex here from Carnivore for Life. Welcome to another UK Carnivore chat. I've got a very special guest with me today. We've had a couple of chats on live streams before when we've been with the UK and the US carnivores. We've had some great chats. But for any new viewers, I'll be asking some questions today, which will obviously, Lauren's here before, but I'm sure she'll answer them as well as she can. Yeah, Lauren's got a YouTube channel. It's all about farming life. I love it. I've complained to her before that there's not enough videos, but she has got a crazy busy life, which we'll talk about anyway. And she's got a big family, and I don't know how she does it. So we'll be looking at all different aspects of carnivore, how she lives her life, and we'll probably talk about the Healing Humanity film project at the end. So the YouTube channel is called Farmer's Wife Farming Life. Enough of me. So, Lauren, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me on firstly anyway, very excited.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I'm Lauren, I'm from Somerset and I'm a farmer's wife. We have a dairy farm and we milk about 120 cows. I live with my husband and my 3 boys.
Okay, that's great. I've got I've been doing some research on cows. So get ready for the questions. So the usual question we ask anybody who's changed to the carnivore way of eating at the beginning is, how did you come across the carnivore diet, and when was it?
So when was it? I was a bit confused because time just goes by so fast. Last year, no, 2 years ago, about around this month, December, January was when I first got really ill. I'd always been ill throughout my life, but never really realised it. I always suffered from chronic UTIs, ear infections, all different. At the time, but I had all these symptoms growing up are all symptoms I managed to be able to heal. Things like verrucas on your feet, sensitive teeth, just so many different things, ulcers in your mouth. But I just think, like anybody, I just sort of accepted that was part of being a human being. And from time to time, we get ulcers and ear infections and all these different things. But yeah, so it was December 21. Yeah, December 21. And I suddenly woke up in the morning and I had a lump in my throat, which obviously was a cause for concern. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and when I tried to swallow, I really couldn't swallow very well. So I called the doctor and they had a phone appointment then because that was during the pandemic and they weren't seeing you face to face. So I spoke to them over the phone and they could come to the conclusion that it was strep throat. But in my head, I'm thinking, I really don't think it is because it's not a sore throat. It's a feeling of obstruction in my throat. Like it just felt like I had a blockage there.
Yeah. What was your breathing like?
I could breathe fine, but
Yeah.
swallowing real issue, and it just felt like I had something stuck in my throat. That's the only way I can sort of describe it. If I swallowed, it just felt like I had. In fact, I even thought that it was a possibility that I had a piece of food or something lodged there. That's just what it felt like. So anyway, they put me on antibiotics because they said it was strep throat. So I was thinking they know what they're talking about. They know best. So I went and got the antibiotics and I went on the antibiotics. I think it was a week's course. But as the days went on, this lump just got worse and worse and it just was not going away. And I was really threatened about it because in my head I was like, oh God, like, is it cancer? Is it like, I just knew something wasn't, it was a horrible thing to have. So I rang the doctors again and they said, oh, it could be some sort of reflux. So I thought, oh, okay, that hadn't even entered my head. So this time they decided they're going to put me on omeprazole, which is an acid blocker.
Yeah.
So they said to still take the course of antibiotics, finish that because they were 7 days. I think this is about 4th day in. But also on top of that, take the omeprazole, and hopefully that should get rid of your problem. So I did both of those things, and I finished the antibiotics, and I also took the omeprazole. And by the end of that week, I did feel a lot better, and I felt like the lump had started to go away. So I thought that's good. It was either obviously the reflux or the strep throat. So they advised me to stay on the omeprazole for a few months. So I did all over Christmas. But I just noticed over time this lump would come and go. So then it suddenly began to sort of sink in. I thought, I do think this is reflux. Because I started noticing that I'd eat something and then it might be really prominent, and then the next day I might not have it at all, and it just kept coming and going like that. But anyway, yeah, so I kept on taking the omeprazole because I thought that was the answer. So I did that, and I continued to eat exactly how I always ate, which, to be honest, was pretty rubbish. Again, at the time, I actually thought I had a pretty healthy diet because I home cooked all our food. I love cooking, I love baking, and I spent a lot of time doing so. And I love, to be honest, I was a feeder. I love to feed people. So anybody that comes over, I'm like, oh, come on in. You can come in and have some tea. I always wanted something there to offer somebody. Have a bit of cake with a cup of tea or whatever. So I was always baking, always cooking. But when I look back on it now, my diet was not healthy at all, because all these, even though I home cooked all the meals, I still used OXO cubes and ingredients that had all these additives in, and I had such a sweet tooth, so I used to bake, and every time I was if I'd had a sponge cake on the side, every time I go past the cake I'd cut off a slice, and I'd just be like grazing all day on stuff. So yeah, when I look back at it now, my diet was terrible, really. And I was also a binge eater. I had, again, I've learned all this. I didn't even know that, I can't believe I didn't know I had a problem, but I did not know I was a binge eater even, until I look back on it now. And I would sit down of an evening and eat a full-size family bar of dairy milk, like that you should share. I would have one of those a night. If I didn't have that, I'd have a tub of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. I'd never have the Ben and Jerry's, couldn't afford that, but I'd get the cheaper Aldi version. But like me and my husband, we wouldn't share. We'd sit and have a tub each. Like that was our evenings. I just felt like if I was sitting watching a telly, I'd have to have something to eat. I'd have to have something to graze on. And always something sweet. But that, it sounds really sad, but that always got me through my day. I'd wake up in the morning and all I would look forward to is sitting down at night to watch telly, what I was going to be eating. So I'd think, oh, I've got that dairy milk to eat later. And that would get me through my day. I was just constantly looking forward to the next thing that I was eating. That's how I lived. But again, at the time, I had no idea that was. I just thought that was normal. I had no idea that was a problem, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, I sort of went off track there. But so I went, as I was taking this omeprazole, and still eating the way I was eating. So I was still eating my chocolate at night time, still eating all the crap that I was eating. And it got to March time, March, April, and this lump just came back with a vengeance and just was worse than ever and just would not go away this time. No matter what I did, I'd think, right, last time I cut out drinking cups of tea, so I'll stop that again, see if that helps. But whatever I cut out this time, that was staying and was not going away. And this was when I fell into I got really bad. I fell into a deep depression because I couldn't do anything. I was just thinking about this all the time. Number one, I thought that I had something very serious. I thought it must be cancer or something because this lump's not going away. And the other thing is I did think, if this is reflux and it's caused by food, I physically can't eat. I can't, whatever I eat is making this happen to me.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? Had you actually been face to face with the doctor or anybody from the medical profession, or was this still during the lockdown situations?
Yes, this is still during lockdown, so I hadn't actually seen anybody.
Right. Yeah.
But like I said, I got myself really bad and in a state. So this time when I did ring, this time I did call the doctor again, and this time they did see me face to face. They said, "Oh, okay, come in, and we better we better check you over. So like I said, this was the April. So I went into the doctor, had a physical examination. They couldn't see anything there.
Wow.
But they agreed, and they said, yeah, I think this is sort of a reflux situation going on. So we're going to book you in for, is it endoscopy?
Yeah, yeah.
The
And
camera.
endoscopy. I've had
End,
one of those.
so the camera down through your,
Yes. Yeah.
into your tummy just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So they booked me in for one of those. But whilst I was there, I was in such a bad way. I had such bad depression. I never had depression before. I've never been a depressive person ever. So this was something completely new to me. But now I realise why. Because I was so addicted to food, and because I was having something that was food related, the thought to me of not being able to eat what I want to, and not physically being able to eat, was just completely awful to me. It was like the worst thing. You could tell me that I can't eat food because I was such a foodie. I just loved food.
Yeah.
And it literally was my life. Like I said, we'd invite friends over. Everything revolved around food in my life. Like that was all we'd go out for food with friends. We'd have people over. Like I said, I'd be baking all the time. That was just what I loved to do. So this got me into that depression. But I was in with the doctor, and I was in floods and floods of tears, and just saying, I can't live like this. I can't do anything. I can't go out with friends because they're all eating. I can't eat. And I think I'd recently been to a barbecue, and I said to him, I said, I've gone to this barbecue. So everyone's around me having a good time, eating exactly what they want to, and I'm there. I literally can't eat anything because whatever I eat gives me this lump in my throat, and I'm miserable.
Yeah. So, sorry, can I ask another question? So, did the symptoms only arise when you were eating, or was it like 24/7, the actual lump?
At this point, it was 24/7.
Wow.
So, and that was the point that I actually stopped eating. So I lost so much weight. I've never been, well, probably since I was an early teenager. I dropped right down to 7 stone 11, which for
Wow.
me, I usually sit around 9.5 stone. So I'd lost
Yeah.
about 2 stone, which I didn't
Wow.
really need to even lose anyway, because I was never overweight. But because I just stopped eating, because I also had this fear that if I do eat, I'm going to make this worse. So for me, it was just easier to not eat anything.
Yeah.
So that's what I did for a while. But anyway, I was telling the doctor all about this, that I can't eat. And he turned around and said to me, he said, well, I think you take the omeprazole, and, well, to be honest, he said to me, which at the time, I really didn't find very helpful. He said, I don't really see what the problem is, because if you're taking this omeprazole, you should be fine and be able to eat what you want. And I'm sat there thinking, well, what's wrong with me then? Because I'm taking the omeprazole and I can't eat what I want. I've still got this problem. To be honest, that made me a bit even more depressed, because, like I said, I was thinking, well, he's saying that I should be taking this tablet and everything will be fine, and it's not. So something's wrong with me. But he also said, I'm a little bit concerned about your mood, so I think we'll put you on an antidepressant as well. So I came away that day, so I got put on an antidepressant, and I still had to continue the omeprazole. And then in the meantime, I had my endoscopy booked in. So I come away and to know better, to be honest, because I was still depressed. I didn't really have an answer. Like I said, in fact, I was probably worse, because I'm thinking, oh great, I should be able to take that and feel better. I'm not. So I come home, and I did a lot of research myself. I started researching reflux, and because this is something called silent reflux, which I didn't realize at the time, I had to find that out for myself. Nobody told me that. Or they call it LPR. I can't remember what that stands for, but some fancy name. But it's basically where you get acid reflux, but you don't actually get the burning. That's why it's called silent. You don't get the burning. You just get all these. You get the lump in your throat, my voice would go as well. My voice box was affected. Some days I'd wake up and not have a voice. And I'd be constantly clearing catarrh all the time. I felt mucusy all the time, and I'd be going all the time.
Yeah.
So I did research and found out that I actually had silent reflux, which, like I said, nobody told me. And the more I looked into that, that made my depression worse as well, because I think it's just like Googling symptoms you have, and then basically telling you there's nothing you can do, you've got to live with it forever. So that was the answer I had. I'd Google everything, and the answer I got from everything I looked into was, yeah, you've got this forever. Don't eat fatty food, don't eat chocolate, don't drink alcohol. There are like a few things that were the main things that they said to stay away from. But like I said, for me, that was devastating, because I was still in my addictive nature, love food. So to be told that I can't eat chocolate, and that was just, well, I might as well not live, because I don't want to live like that. So I was getting myself worse and worse mentally. I had the endoscopy, and that did reveal grade A esophagitis, which is where the acid comes up into your throat, burns the esophagus and leaves scar tissue. So they did see that. So that just proved that there was some degree of reflux going on. But they couldn't find anything in the stomach. So I come out of my endoscopy, and because I had sedation. Did you have sedation for yours?
No, mine was basically I had to stand up, camera up the nose, and then down the throat, and they never found anything. And for me, it was just carry on taking omeprazole. But yeah.
Yeah. So I had sedation. So I come out and I was a bit dazed from having sedation. I remember somebody walking me to my car. My husband come to pick me up, and I got in the car, and my husband said, so what was the result? And I said, oh, I don't know, actually. I haven't been told anything. God. And he was like, what do you mean you haven't been told anything? I said, well, I don't know. I've just got this bit of paper. And on this bit of paper, it said grade A esophagitis, treatment, omeprazole. I wish I kept it now. I could show you, but it was so vague. And I thought, well, no one sat and explained to me like what grade A esophagitis even is. So me and my husband are in the car like, don't even know what that is. So we got home and Googled it. So I found out through Google what this esophagitis was.
Yeah.
And then I did ring the doctor and say, can I have a phone call with somebody? Because nobody's explained actually what my endoscopy results are. So I'm still completely clueless. So I had a word with the doctor on the phone, and they just said, yeah, basically what I'd read on Google was what the esophagitis is. And the treatment for that is omeprazole, which I'm on anyway. So I'm thinking, oh, great. So I was sort of thinking I was going to get some new treatment that was going to miraculously work.
Yeah. So can I ask how long had you been on omeprazole by that point?
So that was, the endoscopy was May. So this was from December. So December inclusive. So 6 months I'd been on.
And there was no improvements in the symptoms?
No, nothing. And they were telling me then on the phone from the result of the endoscopy that omeprazole is the answer to what will fix. So I'm thinking, well, great. I've been on it for 6 months now, and nothing's happened. In fact, it's got worse.
See, that can I just say as well, that's where I would want my doctor to say, okay, we'll give this a schedule, a timeline, come back to me after 3 months or 4 months or 5 months. But to be on a medication for 6 months for something like, acid reflux, to me, the medication is not doing what it's supposed to do. And that's what gets me so frustrated, and probably like yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think well, at the time I trusted the doctors. So whatever they were going to put me on, I'm thinking I just think it's a magic pill.
Yeah.
That I'm going to take it and everything's going to be okay and it's going to sort everything out. But that just was not the answer.
No.
So anyway, I had the endoscopy, and again I began to do more research, because I was not going to live like this. I just couldn't. I was so depressed. So I did more and more research and didn't really find anything at all. I did actually find surgery, which I did consider.
Wow.
But I'm glad now that the one thing that stopped me from having surgery was the price. I just could not afford it. I think it was going to cost. It's something called Lynx surgery, which is a magnetic like bracelet that goes around the top of the bottom of your esophagus, the top of your stomach. And because they're magnetic, so the idea is when you swallow, the magnets will open and let the food in. But as soon as you swallow the food, the magnets will close together to stop any reflux coming back up into the esophagus.
Wow.
But that's a recent sort of surgery that hasn't really been done too much. But I read a few success stories on it, and I thought, I was desperate, and I was like, when I found that, I was so glad I found it, because I thought, oh, I have got an answer, like I can have surgery. When I looked into it, it was about £12,000, and there was just no way at the time I could afford £12,000 to have this surgery. Thank God I couldn't afford that, because I tell you, now, if I'd have had that £12,000, I would have had that done, because I was desperate.
Of course.
So I'm very thankful that I could not afford that surgery.
Yeah. That's a blessing.
Yeah, definitely. A blessing in disguise, they say, don't they?
So we're up to, was it May 2022 by this point?
Yeah, so we're probably pushing into June now. June, I went on holiday with my husband and our friends. It was their 40th birthday. We went away for the weekend, and I really didn't want to go. But I didn't say anything to anybody, because it was their 40th birthday, and I didn't want to ruin anything for anyone. It'd been planned for ages. I didn't say anything to my husband, but that holiday, I think that's when my husband realised how bad I was, and I pretty much cried the whole holiday, and he was just like, oh my God, I didn't know you were this bad. But
Wow.
what triggered me on holiday was seeing everybody around me at restaurants, eating whatever they wanted, drinking, having fun, and there's me just deeply depressed, can't eat anything. And I'm just thinking, that was my thought. I was just thinking, if I have to live like this, I'd just rather not be here. I don't want to be here.
Wow.
But I just think, when you're in that situation, when you're that depressed, seeing everybody around you happy and doing what they want to do is the worst thing that you could possibly see, because it just reminds you that you can't live like that, and I can't be like that.
It basically just magnifies the whole thing, doesn't it? The whole issue. Yeah,
definitely. And I just sort of, it sounds selfish, but you do get that feeling. I'm thinking, why me? What have I done? Why have I got to live like this? Why is this happening to me? But I was just so depressed, and I spent the whole holiday in tears, crying. We got back, and my husband, he said, I'm sorry. He said, if I'd known you were that bad, he said, we wouldn't have gone. But I was like, not your fault. I didn't say anything, because like I said, I didn't want to ruin it for everybody else. It had been planned a long time. But that is when he was like, right, we really need to do something about this, because we can't go on like this. So I went back to the doctor, and what did they do? They doubled my dose of omeprazole and also my antidepressant tablet. So I come back, and I was on the same strength of omeprazole. I was on 40 milligrams, but twice a day rather than once a day.
Yeah.
So take it in the morning, take it at night, and then my depression, I can't remember, I think I was on 20 milligrams. I think I went up to 40 milligrams of my depression, my antidepressant. And I did that for 2 weeks. And again, I still had so much faith in the doctor. So when I came away from there, I actually felt quite happy, because I thought, oh, now perhaps that I've got a higher dose of omeprazole and a higher dose of antidepressant, perhaps that's what I needed. Perhaps that's the answer for me. And I got 2 weeks in, and I just realised that nothing was changing. And in fact, my depression was just getting worse. And I remember I was out milking the cows one night, and I I literally just led on the parlour floor, and my father-in-law came out at the time, and I was just crying and crying, and he was just like, "What on earth is the matter?" And I said, I don't know what to do. I don't want to live anymore." And at this point, I I had suicidal depression. I was honestly in a terrible, terrible state. And he brought me back down to my husband. My husband was in the house with the kids, looking after the kids. He brought me back down, and I did not want to come in because I didn't want the children to see me like it. But I
Of
couldn't
course,
control.
yeah.
I was just sobbing, and I just thought. I said to him, I said, "I think you're going to have to come and get somebody to take me away," because my mind was gone. I was honestly gone. Like I'd never, like I said, I was never a depressive person, but I felt like I was mentally just gone.
Mm.
And I honestly thought that I was going to have to be taken away and to be sectioned because I just couldn't control my thoughts. I couldn't. It was awful. Um, and this was yes, this was a point I decided as well that I was going to stop taking the antidepressants because they're not doing anything for me.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I can't really remember what happened. It's all a bit vague because I was so depressed, and I just remember every single day I'd cry in the morning. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to look after my children. I didn't want to do anything. Like my husband was doing all the housework as well as the farm work because I just wasn't doing anything. If a dish was here unwashed, it would just be left there, wouldn't be cleared away. The kitchen was a mess. It was just piled up with dishes. So my husband just had to do absolutely everything because I was physically doing nothing. I would just be on the sofa, lost in my own thoughts, not even realizing what's going on around me, not looking after the children. I was in a terrible, terrible mess. I don't know how I sort of came about this, but I must have been at the time just still doing research,
Yeah.
and I came up with a naturopath, a herbalist lady,
Yeah.
and also acupuncture. So I thought, well, I'm going to go down this road now. I haven't tried the natural path. I tried medication, haven't worked. I'll go down the natural route. So I'm having acupuncture, and I started to see this nutritionist, this naturopath lady. I rang her, and she said, "Yeah, I've got an appointment for you. It's going to take 2 hours." And I thought, 2 hours? I thought, what the hell? Why do I need 2 hours? The doctor only they give you 5 or 10 minutes, don't they?
10 minutes. Yeah. 10 minutes.
I'm thinking like, what the hell does she want me for 2 hours? Like, what can we possibly do in 2 hours? But anyway, so I went along with it. It cost a lot of money. It was for the 2 hours, it was £120, £60 an hour. But again, I was desperate. I was going to do anything. But I went to her appointment, and I have to say, she was the first person that sat me down, and the first thing she said is, "What are you eating?"
Yes.
So I went through everything. I had to do a food diary. I had to, she wanted to know all my history. She wanted to know if I'd been on antibiotics, any illness that I'd had previously, any vaccinations that I've had in my life.
Wow.
She went through my whole life. If there was any stress, family life, she went through everything with me. And in fact, we ran over the 2 hours. That's how in depth she went. And she did say to me, she said, from looking at your diet, you have a lot of wheat, and you also have a lot of sugar and a lot of dairy. And she said, the first things first, you need to cut out the dairy, you need to cut out the wheat, and you need to cut out the sugar.
Wow.
And again, to me at this time, I'm just thinking, God, I come away like so upset, thinking I've got to cut all of this out. But I thought I'm going to give it a go. And in my head at the time, I thought that I might have to cut it out for a couple of months and reintroduce it again in a couple of months, and I'll be fine.
Yeah. Did you? What was your initial reaction to the comment about excluding the wheat and sugar? Were you surprised, or did you expect her to say it?
No, I was completely shocked.
Yeah.
To me, I was like, why have I
Yeah.
got to cut it out? I don't, because I hadn't pinpointed this reaction to a specific thing. I'm thinking, why have I got to cut out wheat, dairy, and sugar? And like she said, because that was the main of my diet, I'm thinking, well, if I cut out all those, what am I going to eat? Because there's nothing left. Like that is my
Yeah.
diet. But anyway, I come away and I was determined then. I was like, right, I'm going to give this a go. So I did it, and I cut out the wheat, and I cut out the dairy, and I cut out the sugar. And so basically I was eating lean meat, and that's another thing she said to me. She said, if you have meat, you do not have the fat. Like with acid reflux,
Wow.
that's the worst thing you can do.
Right.
So she said, if you have chicken, you cut off the skin. If you have beef or lamb, you cut off the fat, make sure it's lean. So that's what I did. So I was having lean meat. I wasn't even having potatoes at this point. I was having quinoa, like the little grain. I was having that. And so many vegetables. I was just piling my plate with vegetables, and I was eating sauerkraut and lots of fermented foods. So I was doing that, and whilst I was doing this diet, I did go and see a food allergy lady. I don't know if you heard of Vega testing.
No.
So this is where it's a food allergy test, but you hold a probe, like electric probe, and
Yeah.
it's done through energy waves in your body rather than through blood or hair.
Yeah.
And I'd heard of this lady, and I thought, oh, that's something quite interesting. It might pinpoint exactly what I'm allergic to. So I went and had that done, and the foods that I reacted to, interestingly, were baker's yeast, sugar, brewer's yeast, beer, wine, anything yeasty and anything sugary. And she said, you quite clearly have a candida problem. You've got candida growth. And at the time, I'm like, what's that? I've got no idea what that is. And she said, have you had a history of antibiotics? And I said, yeah, I was on them probably 2 or 3 times every single year for UTIs, for ear infections, my whole life. And she said, candida is basically where all your good bacteria is wiped out, usually through antibiotics and then poor diet on top of that. And then you've got lots of bad bacteria, and then you're feeding the bad bacteria with sugar and yeast, and they're thriving off of that, and just living in your gut, you just got loads of bad bacteria, basically, which I'd never heard of before. So I thought, oh, that's interesting, like, because I reacted to the sugar and yeast, that obviously means my body doesn't like the sugar because it's feeding the bad bacteria. So I come away. So she said, you've got to completely quit sugar for 12 weeks, and anything with yeast. So any bread, pizza bases, cakes, anything like that, which I wasn't eating anyway. So I carried on with that and quit the sugar. And in 12 weeks, I had to go back for a retest. And I did go back in 12 weeks, and I reacted to nothing. So it just showed that my candida had gone away. I'd starved it, like through not feeding it sugar or yeast. I'd managed to starve that. But anyway, whilst I was on this diet through this nutritionist lady, I was still getting lots of food reactions. So I'd have food reactions for me where like my glands would swell. I'd get ulcers on my tongue. I'd get styes in my eyes. I could just eat one thing. The next morning I'd wake up with a great big stye or a sore mouth, or I'd get like blocked sinuses, stuffy sinuses. So I was still having all these reactions. I was getting so frustrated because I just thought, I'm literally eating so clean, and I hadn't cheated once because I did all this diet over Christmas, and I hadn't even had one chocolate. I did not cheat once because I was so determined that I was going to get better. But I just sort of got to the point where I'm just like, oh, I'm eating so healthy, yet I'm still reacting. So in my mindset, I thought, well, if I'm having an allergic reaction to healthy food, I might as well eat what I want and react to that, because because I'm just like, I'm just not winning here. Whatever I do, I'm not. So I did do that for a little bit. So I did go back to, oh, sod it, I'm going to have some chocolate. If I want some chocolate, I'm going to have some chocolate. If I want a bit of bread, I'm going to have some bread. Until I got to the point where I did feel a lot worse again, and I could feel the lump come, because on this diet, the lump in my throat did go away. It did help.
Right. Yeah.
But when I started eating the chocolate and that again, I could feel this lump starting to come back, and I thought, I can't go back to that again. So I went back to my lean meat, high vegetable, high grain diet. Lots of nuts and things as well, like nuts and smoothies, like all the things that you shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
So if I was hungry, I just get a handful of almonds and snack on almonds, or I would have a green smoothie or all these different things. She also had me drinking celery juice as well, which now I'm like, no. But I was chugging like 2 glasses of celery juice a day, which was disgusting. I
Yeah.
had to actually, whilst I was doing it, I'm trying to hold it down because I just wanted to be sick with the taste. It was disgusting. But all these remedies that are supposed to be really good for you, I was still reacting to. So that was over Christmas and going into January. I carried this on, and then March, I was actually due to I went to see her again, and I told her, I was there crying, saying, I'm eating so healthy, I haven't cheated once, I'm still having all these reactions. She said, I think for you, we need to do a juice fast, a 3-day juice fast. So we planned it all, and I got all these organic fruits and vegetables, cabbages, lettuces, all these apples, and I bought a juicer as well, and I was going on a 3-day juice fast. So I'm thinking, this is it, this is what's going to help me. Because she said we need to like replenish your body with nutrients. So she said, I think this is the thing like that we should do now. So I come away that night, like I said, I bought everything, but that night I had the most horrendous pain in my stomach, which I'd never ever had before. And I went all quiet. My husband's like, "You all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so. But something's not quite right, but I think I'm all right." And I thought I had really bad constipation because I'd been suffering with constipation. I'd never had that before until I was doing this high veg diet with the nutritionist. All of a sudden, I experienced constipation. I never ever had that. So I just thought this pain this night was just really bad constipation. And honestly, within an hour, it had gone from a little jabbing pain to doubled over, I can't walk pain. And my husband, something's not quite right. And I thought, no, I've got to go up to the toilet. I thought, oh, this is really bad constipation. I went up onto the toilet and I started being sick, and I was just screaming in pain. And my husband, bless him, he was so frightened. He's like, what on earth's going on? And I went to stand up, and I couldn't walk. I just had so much pain. I just went to fall over. So he sort of caught me, carried me into my bed, and we left it a little while. And I again just started screaming out in pain. He's like, something's not right, I'm going to call an ambulance. And I'm like, no, it's all right, because I'm still thinking I've got really bad constipation. I don't know why I didn't twig that it was something more. But I'm like, no, it's all right, we'll leave it a bit and I'll see how I go. And it just got worse and worse, and I'm being sick. So we ran the ambulance, and they said, because at the time they were under pressure as well, and they said you'll actually be quicker to drive in.
Really?
So my husband, we got in the car and he took me down to the hospital, and it turned out I had appendicitis. So yeah. So I was there again, they were under pressure. I was there all night until I got seen in the morning. And yeah, they took me through and they were like, yeah, you got appendicitis. So, and at this time I'd been so clean, they were like, we want to give you some painkiller, we're going to give you some antibiotics. And I refused. I said, no, I said, I don't want any of that. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, I don't want any painkiller, even though I was in so much pain. My husband looked at me and he said, I think you are going to need some painkiller. And I said, no, I don't want it. I don't, because I said to her, I don't want to ruin my gut. And she had no idea. The nurse had no idea what I was on about. And she said, what do you mean you don't want to ruin your gut? And I said, well, if you give me that, I said, I've been doing some gut healing and you're going to undo it all if you put all that in my body. And she Googled it. I said, she Googled it, and she said, well, I can't see anything. And I said, if you Google ibuprofen and gut health, I said, you'll see that it's just not good for it. And so she Googled it. She was like, oh, right, interesting. She's like, I never knew that. but in the end, I was in so much pain, and my husband, he was like, he's like, you're going to have antibiotics anyway, because this could kill you otherwise if the infection gets out.
Right.
So he's like, you've got to have that. So he's like, if you're having antibiotics, you might as well have painkillers and be comfortable. And I'm obviously going to surgery, so I'm going to be having anesthetic and everything put into my body anyway. Yeah. In the end, I was like, okay, I'll have painkillers if it's paracetamol, because I know that they're not quite so bad as ibuprofen. So they gave me paracetamol through a drip. Yeah, and I went and had the operation. And after that, it took me a long time to recover. I was really poorly. Whilst I was in hospital, I had to eat all the hospital food, but I did go gluten-free. I told them I was gluten-free. But I still had to have all the other crap there.
Yeah.
It was either that or I didn't eat. But yeah, I came home and my recovery took a long time, and I went back to, because I wasn't feeling very well for a long time afterwards. I thought I've really got to get back onto my nutritionist diet, because I've got to get well. So I started all that again. And I just started having worse and worse reactions than ever. This lump in my throat come back. And I honestly, Alex, I was just at the end of my tether. I honestly, in my head, I was just thinking, I'm better off dead. I don't want to be here, because I've been through all this. I've tried so hard, and I've got absolute nowhere.
It sounds, I mean, the words that come to mind are mentally and physically exhausted.
That's exactly what it was. And I was just ready to give up. I felt like I'd been through absolutely everything possible and nothing working.
So what was the timeline? What month were we up to, and what year? Was it 2022 still?
This is this year now. So March this year, I had the appendicitis.
Right. Yeah.
And then it was May of this year, so 2 months after that, I was back on my nutritionist diet, trying to get myself better, and the reactions were just getting worse. But bearing in mind, I'd obviously had a lot of stress to my body. I'd had an operation.
Yeah. Can I ask you what your weight situation was? Were you still underweight?
Oh God, yeah, I dropped. So I was back. So I had put on a little bit of weight when I went on my nutritionist diet with the high veg and that, and I went back up probably to about 8.5 stone. But after my appendicitis, I was back down to 7 stone 11.
Wow.
That was my lowest point. But yeah, it got to about May, and I was back on this nutritionist diet. And my husband said to me, actually, because we went away, because in the March we were due to go to Legoland, but we couldn't go, obviously, because of my operation. So we went in the May, and that evening I was just getting dressed in our hotel room, and he said to me, he said, I don't mean this in a horrible way. He said, but you look absolutely awful. He said, I can see all your spine. He said, I can see your ribs. He said, he said, he said, you got to put on weight. But I'm like, what can I do? Like, I thought the only way I can put on weight is if I start eating chocolate and all the rubbish again, which I don't do. So anyway, I was back on this nutritionist diet and just piling my plate high with vegetables and quinoa. That's what I pretty much had every day: salmon, quinoa, and vegetables, and porridge. Because I was constantly starving, I would eat about 3 or 4 bowls of porridge a day, because just to fill me up. I was no wonder I had appendicitis now with all that fibre.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, so, and it wasn't until one Sunday I was feeling a bit better, and I was up and walking about and doing a bit more around the house after my operation. And I'd cooked roast lamb for my family. I obviously wasn't going to have it. I still had my salmon and all that cooked. And this was when I had my moment. I took the lamb out of the oven, and I remember it now, peeled off the tin foil, and that smell and the look of that lamb was just so, I said to lots of people, I can't explain the feeling, but it was just like I don't know, it was just such an overwhelming feeling. That was just it was just it was screaming me to eat me. My body was literally screaming, eat that lamb. and I had such an overwhelming urge to eat it. And I'm thinking, no, I can't, because I can't have the fat. I'll get acid reflux. But I honestly, the urge to eat that lamb was just so overwhelming. But I didn't. I thought, no, I'm not going to, because again, in my head, I'm just thinking, I don't want acid reflux. I remember what that was like. I don't want to go back to all that again. But I dished it all up to my family, and then I decided that I was going to Google. I thought, can I have some of that lamb? So I Googled, is eating meat that bad for you? And obviously the first few things that come up, so like, oh, eating meat's terrible, like especially red meat, avoid red meat. And then I put, is it bad for acid reflux? And all that came up with was like, yeah, if you've got acid reflux, don't eat fat, don't eat fatty meat, stay away from it. Until I found, I can't even remember what website it was now, and I came across something that said the carnivore diet. I wonder if it was Dr. Kilt's actually. And I started reading it, and I read into it a bit more. And I thought, that sounds like a lovely diet. Like, because at the moment, my body's like screaming at me to eat this meat. And I thought, oh, God, if only I could do that. That sounds like, to me at the moment, that sounds amazing. But I read a little bit more into it, and I thought, something about it just made sense to me. And I thought I'm gonna look more into that a bit. And so anyway, after reading that, it did give me the confidence to have a little bit of lamb. I wasn't like gonna scoff it back, but I thought, I'm gonna eat some of that lamb because I really, really want it, and my body is physically telling me to eat it. And I ate some, and honest to God, that is better than any chocolate bar or anything that I've ever had. That to this day was the best meal that I'd had in my life. And I think my body was so starving for it, and just screaming at me to eat that, like especially the fat. Like, I was just looking at it all oozing out, and I just thought, oh my God, that's delicious.
Yeah. You were probably going into survival mode, to be honest,
Probably because I was so underweight. Like I was so terribly ill and underweight, and it was my body screaming at me to eat that. It was honestly telling me to eat that meat. And I did have that little bit, and it was hard to stop. I didn't overindulge because, like I said, I was worried about the acid reflux, but it was very hard to stop. Once I started, I just wanted to, I just wanted to go and go. But I did have to sort of put a cap on it and be like, no, that's enough now. But that night I went into, I say I feel sorry for my husband and my kids, because that night and probably the next couple of days, I just ignored everybody and was on my phone like this carnivore diet. And I watched every single YouTube video. I was just on it, and I was just researching it. And as I was reading it all, I was like, yes, this all makes sense. This actually makes sense. And I had just this belief in my heart that this is the right thing to do. And I thought, this is what I have to do. And I know they say that you should prepare for the carnivore diet, but I decided, I was like, no, this is what I'm going to do. Next day I woke up, had 2 lamb chops for breakfast, and that was it. And that's how I started. I didn't have any salt at that point. I had no electrolytes. Because I wasn't planned for it, I just decided that I'm doing it. I'm going for it. So that's what I did. And that's how I found it.
Wow. So if you pardon the pun, you had a gut instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Very similar story. I mean, I don't want to talk about me today because I've documented it enough, but a lot of people we're talking to have very parallel experiences, health issues, mental issues, weight, plus or loss. And, hopefully any new viewers who are watching today will be able to pick up on that, because I say your previous videos are not online now, but that's when I started to get interested in your channel, because I thought, this lady looks young, she looks well, but you were talking about so many issues, and I was totally fascinated by it. But yeah, listen, thanks for that. That's a great introduction.
Yeah, very long one.
So no, that's fine. Yeah, saves me talking. So let's talk a bit more about Carnivore then, because obviously we're talking around about, is it May June this year when you started to crack on.
Yeah, May I started it this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was 12 months after I'd started. And at that point, I was looking to find more, not just research, but to see if people like you and I, normal working people, were doing this crazy thing, because
Yeah.
I was getting so many good results, but I was thinking, I've documented it. I was getting tumbleweed from everybody. Everyone was asking me, "You look so great, Alex. What's going on? Didn't recognize you. What are you doing?" When I told them what I was doing, it was complete recoil. You know, you are, you
You're
are
crazy.
talking, oh, you're crazy, But no matter how many times I said, well, I've lost 2 stone, I feel fantastic. I've lost all my mental fog. I'm physically stronger. My clothes, I'm buying new clothes. I'm having to give my clothes away. It was too much for people to take. And I think it's a thing called cognitive dissonance, which I've looked at, where, you come along with a new idea, which is probably the truth, but people are just so ingrained, including myself, over all my years. It's just too much to take in at once. So
Yeah.
that's what obviously I turned to YouTube, and then the likes of yourself. I was fascinated by the fact that there was somebody else from the UK who was having troubles like I was having, and
Yeah.
I'd found this vehicle. So let's get onto Carnivore before I talk too much. So we know why you started, and we've got some idea about your thoughts about it, and we know what your previous diet was, very similar to mine, very grain-based, lean meat, 80-20 probably ratios of 80% vegetables, and it wasn't doing us any good. So I got really good family support, but well, I'm sure you're going to say yes, but what was your family's reaction and response to, your change in direction on your nutrition?
Well, this is something that still fascinates me to this day, and I've heard other people say this. But when I first sort of said to my family that I was eating just meat, and they could not believe it. They're like, "What? Just meat? What about your vegetables?" Like, "No, I don't have any. What? You don't have any vegetables? No. What about fruit?
Wow.
No, don't have any fruit. Well, you can't live like that. You can't live like that because you're going to have a heart attack. Your arteries going to
Yeah.
and I had all the same as what everybody else gets because,
Yeah.
like I said, we have all been brought up to believe this, myself included. I'm not a hypocrite. I used to think that. And I think 2 years ago, if somebody came up to me and said all they ate was meat, I'd probably be like, "What? You are crazy." So I completely I do understand where they are coming from. And I still say to my mum and my dad now, I get your point of view, I get that. But you also need to listen to my point of view, and I am physical evidence of it. It wasn't that long ago, actually, we were discussing it because my mum said, "Yeah, but you got to have broccoli because it's the most nutritious food you can eat." And it's so frustrating because I just want to scream like, "No, it isn't." But when you know and you've seen the light, and I am physical proof it's worked on me, and I know what's worked for me. But I said to her, I said, "Mum, I said, can't you see that I'm literally in the best health I've ever been in? I don't have I'm not on any medication. I don't have any of these UTIs, ear infections. I don't have any of these problems.
Yeah.
I suffered with tinnitus all my life. That went away. That was one of my major things. I didn't even expect that to go away. That was just a bonus. That went away. And I'm like, why are all these things clearing up if I'm supposedly not healthy, or this isn't what I'm supposed to eat?" But everyone's like, "Oh no, you can't, you need fiber." Like, how do you go to the toilet? And I'm like, "Trust me, you don't need fiber." That I
Yeah.
know I'm doing it. I've been doing it for long enough now, and I know that you do not need fiber to go to the toilet. Um, but yeah, so bless them, they are still a little bit like, "Can't believe you're eating like that." Um, but like I said, when I used to eat what I used to eat, nobody ever commented then. Like
Yeah.
when I sit and eat a family-sized bar of chocolate, nobody said, "Oh, why are you eating that? That's so bad for you." Nobody said one thing. I'd eat a packet of, like, you get a packet of a tray of 4 donuts from Tesco or whatever. I eat the whole tray in one sitting. I would just eat them all.
Wow.
And I could do that in front of my mum, and she wouldn't bat an eyelid at that. Yet because I'm eating 2 steaks on a plate with no vegetables or no fruit, that's terrible. That's awful.
Yeah.
So I think from extended family, like from like mum and dad, and even like my husband's mum and dad, they're a little bit more understanding, but they're still a little bit like it's a
Yeah.
little bit strange.
Yeah.
But so they're not fully on board with it. But I think they can see now that it is helping me, and I'm literally the best that I've ever been.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're still not convinced by it, if
No.
you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on the same journey. So the question on the family support, how does that change the meal dynamics in the house? Because you said you're cooking quite a lot. Do you have to plan more like I do?
Um, what do you mean? Sorry. So like
Well,
in
when I
my
say I plan, I don't actually plan anymore. Sadly, I eat only when I'm hungry, like carnivores do.
yeah
Um, my family are not certainly not indoctrinated. They're supporting me 100%, but they are more unintentional keto. So Michelle buys supermarket food for her and Alex, whereas I go to my local butcher, and that's where I buy all my food. So there's been a change in direction. That they used, because I'm semi-retired, I used to do all the cooking. So it would be 80-20, mainly wheat grains, rice, pasta, potatoes, and about 20% fish or lean meat. So that's all gone.
yeah
Alex has took on board the keto aspect, and he has cut down on sugar incredibly so much. He's only 22, and I had horrendous acne when I was a teenager. And obviously, if I'd have gone back to, if I'd have known about carnivore, then I might have had clear skin. I don't know. But what I'm saying is the like food preparation or meals, we don't actually sit down together anymore and have meals together. Now, you being a farmer's wife or a farmer yourself, I'm sure there's a dynamic where you all sit together and you eat. But obviously, I'm guessing you have to make different food for different members of the family.
yeah that is something that has become quite difficult. I did put my kids on carnivore for a while, but I had
Wow.
to I had to stop that because I was thinking, yeah, I'm gonna make them all carnivore and it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
But it's a lot harder for kids, and I didn't realize how hard it was actually going to be. They were actually not too bad at home, and I still do to a certain. I would say they are heavily animal based at home now.
Yeah.
Um, but you just what we found difficult was if we were out, you cannot stop them from having things that other children are having,
Yeah.
because to them they don't understand why why are all other kids allowed sweets and I'm not allowed them.
Yeah. And obviously,
Um,
school's the situation as well. There's a big peer group pressure there.
yeah, exactly. And they don't, and you don't want them to be any different to their mates. You don't want them to be left out. It's really hard because I don't want them to
Yeah.
eat like that, but then I also don't want them to be left out. It's how society is, and that's what kids do. Kids eat sweets, and they all drink in all this rubbish energy drinks and God knows what. I dread to think.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we just found I put them on the carnivore diet for a little while, and we actually had a party on the weekend, and me and my husband took them to the party, and it was so embarrassing. They like when the party food came out, they literally cleared the table. They piled them on the plate, and I said to
Wow.
my husband, I said, this is not good because I'm actually triggering binge eating in them, like because
Yeah.
they're not having it at home.
Swinging like that.
Yeah, because they're not allowed it at home. They're thinking, oh God,
Oh,
we've got sugar here now, so we're going to have as
yeah.
much as possibly can in one sitting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't do that to them because if I'm stopping it completely at home, when I'm not there or when they're out, they're just going to go overboard because
Yeah.
they know I have it when I'm not there or whatever. And I don't want that to be the case. I don't want them to be secretly binge eating because that's just as bad, I think,
Yeah.
as
And it
eating.
causes resentment at home and friction and bad atmospheres. And as you say, the more they are pressurized, not pressurized, but more influenced by yourself, as soon as they go into their peer groups, they'll swing the completely opposite way. I've had that experience with my kids.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I had to stop that. So what we do now is they are on a whole food diet. So
Mm.
if you look in my cupboards, I literally have nothing processed. We have no
Yeah.
sauces, absolutely nothing, like nothing in a box. So they are on a whole foods diet. So I will make them a spaghetti bolognese, and I don't let them have vegetables very often. So my spaghetti bolognese now is literally just mince and chopped tomatoes. I won't even put onions or mushrooms or anything in it, because I just try to not let them have many vegetables, because I don't want them to have them. So they'll just have like the pasta with the mince and the tomatoes, and I might put a bit of basil and oregano, like dried herbs, in there to give the bolognese flavour. But that also, their meals are sort of things like that, or chili. But again, the chili, I will not put kidney beans or anything in there. It's all very basic, but they're happy with that. Or they'll have the meat, like, because I'm obviously quite often cooking up like roasting joints or whatever. They'll have meat with potatoes cooked in tallow. I've got absolutely no seed oils in the house. That's all gone. So their diet is significantly better to what it was previously. We've got nothing processed in the house. So that's the sort of meals I cook for them. And then we do, on a weekend, we do allow them to have sweet things. So that's where we think, hopefully, when they go out now and they're exposed to sugar, that they won't be so quick, let's get it all, because they can have it at the weekend. So on a weekend, like for example, yesterday I bought them some frozen pain au chocolat. So on the weekend, that will be their breakfast, rather than having to have, because they have porridge every single morning, or bacon and eggs. That's the two that they alternate. But on a weekend, they'll be allowed something different for breakfast. Or they'll say, can I have a biscuit? So I will, like, for the weekend, buy in a packet of biscuits. So if they do want a biscuit, they can have one, just so that I'm not stopping it completely. And like I said to them, they hopefully won't go out and binge on it, because I know that's what will happen it's the same with anything, isn't it? I think if you stop kids from doing anything, they rebel and go the other way. You can't
Absolutely.
You've got to have you got to have the happy medium, haven't you? So
Yes.
So now on the week, or if we are out and they say, oh, can we get a packet of sweets from the shop? Yeah, you can have a packet of sweets from the shop, because I don't want to be like, no, you're never having sugar. So that's what they do now. And my husband, he is pretty much carnivore now as well.
Wow.
So that's amazing. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah, that's great news. I was going to ask that question. I just think, looking back at my childhood, where I lived in Liverpool, it was a poor working class area. I won't go into detail, but for example, we had an outside toilet. That's all we had. And we had ice cream at the weekend, because my mum had 4 kids. My dad had passed away. So the bottom line was, she had to go out and get the pennies so we could live. And my memories are that we used to wait for the ice cream at the weekend, and all we used to get was a brick or a block of ice cream for the 4 of us. And we were so wanting sugar that much, we would take, without my mum knowing, we'd take the block of ice cream out and we'd take the end pieces out and put it back into the freezer, knowing that she'd find out. But we couldn't wait to get the sugar down us. But compared to the availability of, should we say, the rubbish diet that's nowadays, I mean, I think I eat quite well. But again, as a child, I still wanted that sugar hit, But the world now, I mean, the pressures on young parents like yourself must be incredible, because it is a different world completely.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, let's go on to a bit more. So you've answered loads of questions. Your husband's he's doing carnivore, yes, so that's good news.
Yeah, he's more like a Paul Saladino diet, really. He's animal based, really. So he's heavily meat. Like, we'll have the same breakfast and the same tea, but in between, that's all I'll eat. I'll eat breakfast and I'll eat my dinner later on. I have 2 meals a day. That's it. And I'm like you, eat when I'm hungry, and I eat until I'm full. So we both have the same breakfast, which is usually about 4 burgers, a few slices of bacon, and a couple of eggs. And then we'll have the same dinner, but in between his meals, he will have fruit. So he doesn't have any vegetables. He's literally just fruit and meat, basically.
Yeah, good stuff.
he wouldn't be fat adapted like me. He would, because he still has enough fruit that he would still be running on carbs. But it's worked for him. He's got rid of loads of his health issues, and he has just dropped the weight. He's always struggled with his weight. I wouldn't call him obese. He wasn't ever obese, but he was never happy with his weight. He was always
Yeah.
dieting to keep it off or to try and lose it. And
Yeah. I mean,
going,
I was going to say, with your farming background, you guys have got to be fit to do what you're doing, because I've been watching your farming videos. There's a guy on ITV, Michelle watches mainstream TV, and there's a guy from Emmerdale, I think, who's doing a farming series. But when I was watching your latest videos, I was thinking, it's not like a 9 to 5 job. You've got to be fit and ready for anything, you know.
yeah, and it's so physical. It's just,
Yeah, yeah,
it is, everything you do involves lifting something, or you're
yeah,
walking miles, or yeah, it is.
yeah,
But
yeah.
even though he was had that sort of job, he always struggled to keep the weight off. And then
Right.
he would constantly be going on these diets where he was starving himself. He'd quite often do the 5-2 diet, you know, where you eat what you want
Yeah, yeah.
five
For
days,
two
and then
days. Oh, 5 days. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, you eat what you want for 5 days, and then two
Wow.
days a week you don't eat anything. But he on those 2 days of fasting, he was completely knocked off his feet, because I
Yeah,
suppose he wasn't fat adapted. So going into fasting was just a massive shock. And then he
yeah,
physically do the work on the farm, or he'd just be starving. And then when it come to actually eating again, scoffing because you're so hungry.
yeah,
He never really had. He was sort of yo-yo dieting all the time. Never really had the success that he wanted until
yeah,
now. The other day, he's like, I can't believe it. He's like, never looked like this, because he's actually starting to get definition, which he's never had. And
yeah,
he said, I haven't even had to work out for it. He said, he's lost loads of weight, started to get definition. He said, all the times that I've tried losing weight and I've actually sat there and done ab workouts and all these different workouts and never got any results. He said, I
mm,
can't believe how easy it is just eating what he's eating.
yeah,
And it's just like naturally happening.
yeah. Well, you've answered the questions about your husband, and it's great that you've got that, you know, mutual support for each other as well. So I'm really pleased about that. Let's go on to socializing. So we talked about socializing before, and it was really affecting you mentally. Um, do you get a chance to go out much? And if you do, what's happening nowadays?
So this is something that I still do struggle with, and I would say this
Yeah,
is the biggest struggle for me on Carnivore.
yeah,
Is I am and have always been a very social person, and I love going out. I love seeing people. I love people. Um, but our socializing was always going to the pub for a drink with friends, or going out for dinner with friends, going around friends' houses for dinner, and everything revolves around food and drink. Like, that is just how it is. Um, so that is the one thing I would say on Carnivore, is it has made me not so sociable, because I'm comfortable at home. I'm safe at home. I know if I eat what I cook at home, I know that I'm safe, and I'm just comfortable with being at home, because I know that I've got something to eat all the time and I'm sorted. Soon as I go out, I do sort of get a little bit like, oh, I'm going out. I sort of have to prepare what I'm going to eat, where I'm going to eat. Um, so I definitely don't go out so much anymore. I used to be out quite a lot, and it has sort of made me not go out so much.
right.
Um, but there are ways around it. So I went out the other last week, actually, and I know it's very expensive, but I do like Miller and Carter, the
Mm.
steakhouse.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
so I know that if I'm ever anywhere that's got a Miller and Carter, I'm fine because I could eat there. And they're always very good. I would say, can you pan fry my steak in butter? I
Yeah,
don't want it on the grill, because they cover all their steaks in seed oil and then put them on the grill.
yeah,
Um, so I just tell them, actually, I say I'm allergic to all seed oils. And they do sometimes say, they say, oh, I've never heard of that. And I'm like, yeah, well, you have now.
yeah,
Um, but I say, if I tell them that I'm allergic, I know that it's definitely not going to be cooked in seed oil. So they're very good, and they will put the steak in a pan in butter, and I have it like that. And then I'll have a camembert just
Ooh,
baked with
yeah.
none of the, obviously no bread or none of the garnish stuff. So that's literally what I'll have, is a ribeye and a camembert. But like I said, it is expensive. I went out last week and that cost £50 just for a steak and a camembert.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, which is a lot of money, but I got to eat, and it's the eating out experience. And but I do sort of use that would be used for more as a special occasion sort of thing,
Yeah.
to go and do that. But I know that there's always a McDonald's that I can go and just order. If I have McDonald's, I usually order 12 patties, and that would be my meal.
Yeah. Wow.
So I know I can always do that. But there are times that I can't stick to it. Like I've been on holidays and I've come off the diet. And last weekend, actually, if I'm completely honest with you, the weekend just gone, we had friends to stay, and we went out both days. We went to the coast one day, and the next day we were just around here, but we went out for dinner. And those are the times that I find really difficult, because I don't want to be the one who's being fussy. Oh no,
Yeah.
can't eat today. We've all got to trek around for hours to find somewhere that I can eat. And I hate being the one, when I've never been fussy before. I was such a foodie, would literally eat absolutely anything. I hate being the one at the table going, oh, what's your food cooked in? What, I don't want it to come with it. Can you not make it come with this? And all these different things. I absolutely hate that. I honestly don't like it. So yeah, so this weekend we ended up going to the beach, and I did end up, they all sat down and had fish and chips, which I didn't have, but I did go to Greg's and get a sausage roll, because I was hungry. I did eat my like carnivore meal before we went out, but it got to the point where I was hungry, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to have something to eat. So I had a sausage roll, and then they were all having ice cream. So I was like, well, now I've had a sausage roll, I might as well have an ice cream. So for the whole weekend, I did come off the diet, and most of the time, if I go on holiday, I will come off. But I do actually plan that, because I like to have in my head that I'm going on holiday. I know that I'm not going to eat 100% clean carnivore, but I like to be mentally prepared for that.
Yeah.
For if I get any uncomfortable symptoms or side effects from not eating carnivore, I'm mentally prepared for it. So
Yeah.
that's how I deal with that. But yeah, I have to admit that is the one thing that I find very difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's answered my question, because it was going to be how strict are you on carnivore? I mean, relatively speaking, this is still your first year, isn't it? Since what, May, June,
Yeah,
July?
May, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it brings back memories of when we went to Harrogate for a holiday last year. I think I'd been carnivore about 6 months, and the family, about 14 of us spent Christmas together. And we've lost a couple of family members lately, so we're getting even closer together. And to support me, half of them are going to eat steak this year instead of turkey. So I remember in Harrogate, we were in one of the large parks walking around, and there was an ice cream parlor. And I said, should we all have an ice cream? And everyone went, Alex is
Oof.
going to eat ice cream. And it was the best ice cream I've ever had in my 65 years. The cornet was like that. It was like Cornish ice cream. It was beautiful, and it was very, very simple ingredients. And the ice cream went right down to the bottom of the cornet. So
Oh
for
no.
about 15 minutes, nobody said a word, and they just watched me eat ice cream.
Just all
And
in
I had a
shock. Like,
Yeah, well, it was a nice shot, because they were realizing that, oh, Alex is not going to restrict himself, and I had a big smile on my face. I was like a little boy, licking the ice cream. But once I'd finished it, and the next day, I said to Michelle, I really enjoyed that. It's like, but it wasn't like having a beer and then wanting, oh, I'll have another beer, or I'll have another beer the next day. I felt content. I felt, satiated. The taste buds weren't going, oh, let's have the ice cream again. So if anybody who's obviously new today or has been on carnivore for a while, I think once you get fat adapted, or once you get your palate changing, I think it gives you more of a control as well, which I like to do. I like to be in control of what I'm eating.
yeah.
And, so I think what you're saying is, you've got to do what you've got to do at that particular moment in time, and just don't hit yourself over the head with it, because it's food at the end of the day. But what we want to try and avoid is all the medical issues, the physical issues, and obviously the weight gains. Yeah. So don't ever hit yourself over the head. I think you're doing great. So have you still got some time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go on to doctor visits, if any, since you've been doing carnivore, and have you had any blood tests?
Well, I absolutely will not go to the doctor now unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
Only because I don't trust them anymore. Since going through all that, I realised that I am probably my own best doctor, because I have found out way more for myself than what any doctor has ever told me. So if I ever have to, like when I had my appendicitis, I have no choice. You have to go to the hospital. There's no question on that. But no, I would not. I used to be down to doctors for everything. I used to get some tiny little symptom and be like, oh, better ring the doctor to check that. But now
Yeah.
it doesn't enter my. I don't even want to go anywhere near the place. It doesn't interest me. And same with my husband and the kids as well. With the kids, I used to be, if they could have like a virus and have it for more than 2 or 3 days, and I'd be like, oh, I think I better get them checked by the doctor now, because it's been going on for 2 days. Now I just have more trust in myself and my own instincts than what I would any doctor. So anything to do with my children, I trust myself more. So again, if
Yeah.
they had to go, they would go. I'm not gonna not take them, obviously, but I don't trust them, and I definitely don't go for like I used to. Blood tests, I did do a I don't know if you got that through the post. Actually, I think it's a UK thing it's called Our Future Health.
No.
And we got a letter through the post, and they want lots of people in the UK to sign up for it. And it's to have your bloods taken, and they're doing it as an experiment. They want to try and cure future diseases. Well, I don't know what they're really going to get out of it, but that's what they wanted. But the reason I did sign up for it is because you just go along to a clinic, and they do your cholesterol, your diabetes, or your diabetes check and all that. So I had that done, only because I was interested to see what mine would be. Of course, my cholesterol was very high, but that's what I wanted it to be. So I've got all the results now,
Yeah.
and I've been through them myself, and I follow. I don't. Have you heard of Jason Fung? Jason Fung.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Him. Who else? Ken Berry and another doctor. I can't think who it
Chafee,
is now.
Dr. Chafee? No.
No, it wasn't Chafee. I can't remember. But I went through their YouTube channels. Oh, is he called Dr. Wes or something? Dr. What's his name? Yeah, I think he's called that. Whether I'm pronouncing it right or not, I don't know. But they have videos on interpreting your own blood results and what they say they should be, because I trust them more than what the NHS is saying they should be. And all my cholesterol and everything that has come back has been perfect according to Ken Berry and all the doctors that I follow low carb. So that's good. Happy days.
Yeah. I've listened to Chafee talk about, is it Dr. Diamond, who is he's spot on cholesterol. So I've bookmarked a couple of his videos to watch. But yeah, I think it's Dr. David Diamond. He's worth having a look at as well.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, and also I've been looking at Kerry referring to Dr. Seafried, who's the cancer, the metabolic issues guy. I think these are the people I'm actually watching at the moment, and obviously Dr. Chapey does a lot of stuff on cholesterol as well. But yeah, it sounds as if we're doing the same research, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Next, let's have a look. What's your favourite carnivore food or meal?
Well, like I said, if I'm out, I do absolutely love that from Miller and Carter. That
Yeah.
I don't know what they do to their, I don't know where they get their steaks from, but they are, you got a job to beat it. I always have the 16 ounce ribeye
Oh yeah.
and a whole pot of camembert and just dip the ribeye in the camembert. That's amazing. That's my favorite.
Heaven, heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If I'm at home, I don't know. I the thing is I enjoy all my meals. I think when you're so hungry, because I eat when I'm hungry, whatever you eat is so different, isn't it? So
yeah, spot on.
my breakfast every single morning. This morning I went out to my husband and I said, God, I really enjoyed my breakfast. It was so nice. And that was just, I have the same every day, 4 burgers. This morning I had 4 burgers, 2 bits of bacon and a fried egg cooked in butter. And
Yeah,
that was amazing. And that was delicious. And going back to the weekend, actually, when I was eating off plan, we went out for dinner on the Sunday and I had scampi and chips. And my breakfast this morning to me was much more tasty and delicious than what that scampi and chips
yeah.
was on Sunday. So,
Wow.
I'm having that every day. I think it's just because you're hungry when you're eating it and it's so nutritious. I just think it's delicious. But so yeah, I don't really have a particular favorite. I just enjoy every single thing that I eat, to be honest.
Love it, love it. Okay, so have we got time to talk about the farm?
Yeah.
Yeah. I I was watching one of your videos and you were talking about heifers. Uh, is it heifers? Yeah, and I'd heard that expression, but I thought I've got to Google this, and I didn't realize that not all cows are cows, are they?
No, so a heifer is a young cow, basically. So
Yeah,
a heifer is a young female cow, and they they're a heifer until they have their first calf.
yeah,
After that,
yes.
then they become a cow.
Okay, and
It's,
the next,
I know what you mean, because lots of people say to me, they say, well, I don't know if it's just the UK, but you would hear of heifer as something cool, like a fat person or something.
yes, that's the
So that
slang. That's the slang version. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't
yeah,
actually know that that was a real
yeah,
term. But yeah, no,
Sh-
that's what a heifer
yeah.
is.
That person's a big heifer. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I love the massive calf video with the Belgian blue. Yeah.
yeah. And that,
So stupid question. Why are they called Belgian blues?
well, they're actually called British Blues now.
Oh right. Yeah.
And you know what? That's the question I don't actually know the answer to. So
No.
the breed was just called Belgian Blue. And I think about 2 or 3 years ago, they changed it to a British Blue. So
Right.
why that happened, or I got no idea. So I can't answer that one.
No, no worries. I when when the calf was born, I was sitting there going, "Oh, isn't that a beautiful creature?" But then I started thinking about being a carnivore again.
Yeah.
What's I love your relationship with the cattle. Um, I know you call them your girls. I love all that. I've asked you this before, but what's your relationship like? I mean, are you able to separate being a farmer from being a carnivore?
Yes, because I think whether you're carnivore or not, when you're a farmer, I think we know how important we are to the food
Yeah,
industry, because without a
absolutely.
farmer, you're not going to eat. Whether you eat grains, whether you drink milk, whatever you eat, whether you eat vegetables, it's all grown by a farmer. So I think like eating meat and drinking milk is just obviously not a problem to us. That's something that is just second nature. But yes, we're working with them, and I love our cows. I love all of them. But you definitely can, like our beef animals that we have. I just take comfort from the fact that I know they usually go just under or just over 2 years, just under. I think about 22 months they go for slaughter,
Wow.
but I know that that 22 months of their life that they have had the best possible life. They have been out grazing and they have a lovely life with us on the farm. So I personally rather eat beef that I know where it's been, whether it's had any antibiotics, which we don't give ours any antibiotics. So I know that we are getting the cleanest meat possible, and I know
Yeah.
that she's had a lovely life. So it really doesn't bother me.
Yeah. And your cattle are dairy cattle?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We're predominantly dairy. That's what our business is. We sell our milk to Arla, so
Yeah.
they make Lurpak and different products, Anchor, um, and I think all their milk goes into McDonald's products, and also lots of Aldi, like cheese in Aldi, and the milk in Aldi. That's all Arla as well.
Wow. Wow.
Um, but yeah, so our milk goes to there. So we're predominantly dairy. That is our business, but we just do keep a couple of beef animals for
Yeah.
ourselves.
Okay. I don't know. It's a good question to ask. The cows, when you call them your girlies, when you call them over to be
Yeah,
fed, do they have different characters? Is that a daft question? Can
yeah,
can you sense that they do have different characters?
yeah. They are all so different. So
Wow.
we do get our favourites. There are ones that are more tame than others. Um, we had one not long ago. We haven't got her anymore, bless her. Actually, but she was called Mr. Whippy. Actually, I don't know where she got that name from, but that's what her
Mr.
name
Whippy.
was. And she was so lovely. And when we used to take the cows up to the field, she'd walk side by side with you. She'd stay behind wherever you were. She'd walk beside you, and she'd put her head down. She'd love to have
Oh,
her head sort of scratched. Then there's others that you wouldn't get anywhere near, that they're so moody that they they don't want to know you. But yeah, no, they all have their different characters, definitely.
yeah. With your YouTube channel, Farmer's Wife Farming Life, are you going to continue doing any videos, or are you just too busy?
Um, this is I don't really know. I'd like to think that I will, but it is. I just have found it very difficult. Um, Obviously, you know what it's like. We're we're working, filming it at the same time, but it's not just as simple as filming it and putting it on YouTube. It's then
Yeah.
you got to come in, edit it all, do all of that before you can then upload it. And it's, to be honest, it's not really the filming it that's difficult. It's the finding time to edit it. And I was finding
Yeah.
that I was coming in at night and I'm then sat on my phone editing. Then I'm thinking, oh God, my poor children. I don't want to be one of these mums who is here on the phone, like ignoring the children whilst on my
Yeah.
phone. So it's very
Exactly.
difficult. And then also
Yeah.
that then when the kids are in bed, that's like mine and my husband's time together, and I don't really want to jeopardize that either. I don't want to be there on my phone whilst it's our time together. So no,
Yeah.
it honestly is just trying to find the time to edit it. That's the main problem, really.
Yeah.
But
I
I
do.
do.
I do. I said I was going to. I can relate to that because that's what's happening to me at the moment. I'm putting a lot of stuff out and spending too much time on my own in the kitchen on the laptop.
Yeah.
Uh, but my family, they like watching mainstream TV, which I don't. So they can watch their programs like what's it called? I'm a Celebrity. Is it I'm a Celebrity? Get Me Out of Here.
Yeah, I don't
They
watch it.
they watch that. Oh God,
No.
it wears me out. I'm
Yeah.
too old for it. But yeah, I'd say if you do any more videos, Lauren, I'll be your number one viewer because I think they're fantastic. And I'd say that to any viewers as well. Please, was it share? Please like, share, and subscribe to Farmer's Wife Farming Life because it's a lovely channel. Um, I know obviously it's difficult to do a channel about carnivore at the moment. So, but if you ever do start that again, I think you'll get lots of interest because as I keep talking about it, I don't think we tap into the female side of carnivore, the nutrition changes. I think it's really important. I've got family members who are having big challenges and they are taking the whole nutrition aspect very, very seriously.
Hmm.
Can we just talk about quickly healing humanity? And we've both been active on the carnivore diet movie situation with Kerry from Homestead How. It's starting to make a lot of progress. And as we know, it's Kerry from Homestead House Passion Project. I've suggested to him that, if he does ever come over to the UK, which I think he's very keen on, it would be really good if the likes of yourself, me, say Paul from UK Carnivore Guy, the guys we've been talking to on that WhatsApp group, it would be lovely to get a location where we could get together.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
good.
yeah. So Which, oh yeah, going on to that then. So, what would you say were your most, what were your best three YouTube channels? Don't include me.
Well, I think my favourite at the moment is Frig No Freedom.
Yeah,
Dom,
yeah,
I absolutely love him, and I love
yeah,
his. I don't know if you saw his lately, but he ended up cheating a bit on Thanksgiving, and he ended up
yeah,
having, I think, 3 bits of pie or something.
yes, yeah, yeah,
But I love his honesty. I love that because I think you've got to be real. You know, like we are faced with these challenges in our lives, aren't we? Where we are put in situations
absolutely.
when we
Yeah,
might not be able to eat carnivore, and you know. But I just think my husband said to me the other day, actually, when I felt a little bit bad for coming off, he said, "Look, he said you got to just compare your life now to what your life was." And if you think when we were eating crap all day, every day, to now eating it every now and then when we go on holiday once or twice a year,
yeah,
that is nothing compared to what we used to eat. So
absolutely.
when you put it in that perspective, it's like, yeah, like
Yeah,
he's got a point. Like, does it
yeah,
really matter if I have a cheat meal every 6 months? Probably not, really. But yeah, so I really like his honesty, and yeah, I just find him very easy to follow, and I like what he has to say. I also love Dave Mack from,
yeah,
I get confused with his channel. Is he called No Carb Life?
yes, yes. I think it is. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love him. I think he's hilarious. He's so funny.
And you've
And
been on his channel as well, haven't you?
yeah,
You,
I did an interview with him. Yeah,
yeah,
I did. I think a couple months ago now. So that was very enjoyable. But I just love, more than anything, I love the community posts he puts on, because he quite often puts that little humour
yeah,
um, that just make me laugh. They're so funny.
yeah,
Um, so I really, really like him. Or a third one, I don't know. There's a lots that I watch, but it's really hard to say who would be my
yeah,
top three. But I do like I mentioned earlier, I really like Jason Fung for
mm,
fasting, because I sort of tried a bit of fasting myself lately, so I follow him quite a bit. Um, and then obviously Kerry from Home Said How. In fact, he probably would be my top three, because
yeah,
him along with Dave Mack, um, who else? But they were the main ones when I was looking into carnivore, because I started not long after Kerry.
yeah,
I watched Kerry's 30-day, um, his I ate meat for 30 days,
yeah.
and that was one of the videos that made me go, yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah,
So
that's how I started my channel. And I told them about the issues that I had with telling people I know and getting all the resistance. So I thought, yeah, what a great idea. And so that's basically same thing. I watched this 30-day video, and I'd already subbed to him as Homestead How, because I was fascinated by, living on a homestead and stuff like that, or living on a farm. That's something that fascinates me as well. And so it's these little things we do in life, isn't it? You tune into something, and then you react to it, or you respond to it, and it can take you in a completely different direction. So yeah, I think we've both been on a really similar journey. So one more question I think I've got. Yes. Can you think of any tips you would give somebody brand new? So let's say you met somebody outside, or a friend or family member. What tips would you give them? Say maybe 3 tips if they were serious about starting today.
so I'd say definitely don't overcomplicate it, because I think we all fall into the trap of we have to be so
Yeah,
perfect. And I think I just think starting simple, bacon and eggs or minced beef or whatever, just don't overcomplicate it. And another thing, I think that I learned that from Ken Berry actually, is to eat what you can afford. Because in the beginning I was so
yeah,
wrapped on finding grass fed, grass finished, um, organic, and it was so expensive. I thought, this is not, I'm not going to be able to do this. It's not sustainable. I can't afford to eat like this. When I saw Dr. Ken Berry say, eat what you can afford, and I started buying the cheap beef mince, because we haven't got an animal in the freezer at the moment. We will do next month.
mm,
Um, So I just go into Aldi now. I think you buy that as well, the 25%
Yeah,
essentials beef mince, which I think is it £2.49 for the packet.
yeah, yeah.
And I clear the shelf. I fill the freezer. No one said anything to me yet. Actually,
No, no.
I thought I might get a few weird looks, but because I eat 2 a day, my husband eats 2 a day. That's 4 a day. So like whatever they've got on the shelves, I just pack into my trolley, go and
Yeah,
buy.
yeah.
But
And it's
that
so
is the
cheap.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
cheap. And I have healed. I've managed to heal myself with the cheapest meat. So I do think that you don't need to be so. You don't need to think, oh, it's got to be grass fed. It's got to be grass finished. You know, it's got to be organic. I don't think that's the case because I've healed on the cheapest meat. So I don't see why anybody can't really.
Yeah.
And another thing is probably when I started, I didn't, like I said, I went straight in because I was desperate and I didn't prepare for it like they say. But I do think that you definitely need salt or electrolytes because I didn't start with that and I had the most horrendous 2 weeks. luckily, luckily I had read about all transitional symptoms, so I did push through every symptom I had. I was like, okay, this is normal. I just got to push through it and I'll get over it. But when I started adding the salt and the electrolytes in, I got much more better. But I
Yeah.
think if you start with electrolytes or you start with salt, I don't do electrolytes now. I just literally do salt. I put salt in my water. But I think if you start with that, I don't know because I haven't experienced it, but I do think that probably the transition symptoms wouldn't be quite so bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my 3 things.
Yeah. Excellent. So listen, Lauren, thanks again. I knew we'd have a really good chat today. Loads of information for existing carnivores and for new viewers. I'm hoping to put this out tomorrow. I think I'm going to be too busy today. But I want to thank you for your very valuable time. You know, as a farmer's wife, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks very much. It's so appreciated. And I do hope you develop the channel. That's my little hint anyway today. So any other points you want to talk about before we go?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in today. And I want to thank Lauren for all the enthusiasm, information, and I hope everyone takes a lot of stuff out from today's Carnivore chat. So again, Lauren, thanks very much, and I'll catch you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.